office in North Korea. Their North Korean counterparts abruptly walk off the job last Friday after receiving orders from higher-ups to go home. Confirmation hearings for 7 minister nominees are due to begin at South Korea's National Assembly, starting with President Moon Jae-in's pick for Transport Minister. Plus, the US Justice Department releases the principal conclusions of the Mueller report. The main takeaway: no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia in the lead-up to the 2016 US presidential election. Our top story this morning: South Korean officials are expected to begin working at the joint liaison office at Gaeseong on Monday, as usual, after North Korea abruptly withdrew its personnel from the site late last week. Dozens of officials from Seoul crossed the western land border on their way to the Inter-Korean liaison office this morning. According to Seoul's Unification Ministry, the officials are expected to stay at the Gaeseong liaison office this week. North Korean officials left the facility last Friday without giving a clear reason for the pullout, only saying the decision was made by an order from those higher up. The UN Security Council Sanctions Committee for North Korea has approved more exemptions for humanitarian goods to enter the north. The committee gave the green light 2 weeks ago, allowing a Christian organization in North America to deliver goods for 6 months. 10 items have been permitted, including baby products, clean water and medical supplies. They're going to be sent to children's hospitals. The organisation also plans to deliver medical supplies during a visit in May. This will be the third time a US organisation has been given the green light to travel to the north since US Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun said late last year that Washington will review its policies on travel bans for humanitarian purposes. Confirmation hearings for 7 minister candidates kick off today at the National Assembly. Chair Jong-ho, who is President Moon Jae-in's pick for Transport Minister, is first in the hot seat. Lawmakers are likely to focus on Chair's morality, particularly as he's accused of some pretty shady real estate deals. Other nominees facing confirmation hearings this week include those picked to head up the Unification, Interior and Science ministries. The spotlight is especially on Unification Minister nominee Kim Yeon-chul. If appointed, he will be Seoul's new main negotiator with North Korea. The presidential office and the ruling party say they expect all the nominees to be confirmed. Now, air pollution is a huge issue in South Korea these days. Unfortunately, advisories go out with alarming frequency about the fine dust clogging the air around us. According to the OECD, South Korea's air pollution is actually the 4th worst in the entire world, and the culprit is coal used for power generation. So Bob in with the details.
South Korea was one of the 5 countries with the worst air pollution in the world in 2017. That's according to a report from the OECD on fine dust pollution. Number 1 was India, followed by China, Vietnam, South Korea, and South Africa. And the OECD says the cause of the pollution is coal used for power generation. South Korea burns coal to generate 46% of its electricity, far higher than the average among OECD countries of 27%. The global average is 38%. In the case of South Korea, new coal power plants totaling 2 gigawatts are expected to be online next year, and in 2021 and 2022, another 3 gigawatts. Neighboring China, meanwhile, the source of much of Korea's fine dust, plans to reduce its reliance on coal from the current 67% to 55% next year. Even though China is cutting coal as a percentage, it's still building new coal plants. A South Korean industry official said that with both countries doing so, it's unlikely that air quality will improve in the next few years. 서보빈, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's presidential office says the country's economic outlook isn't that good, and it's mainly because of the slowing global economy. The president's senior secretary for economic affairs, Yoon Jong-won, told reporters Sunday that although the South Korean economy is looking to expand 2.6 to 2.7% this year, It's likely more weakness down the road for South Korea, despite positive signs coming from the US-China trade talks and a more dovish stance monetarily in the world's leading economies, including the United States. Locally, Yoon said there's still weakness in terms of jobs, where efforts are needed from the private sector on top of the government's own measures. Thailand has been holding its first general election since a military coup back in 2014. The announcement of the provisional results are expected on this Monday. For more on this and other news from around the world, we are going to turn to our Hong Yu, who is taking over the hot seat from Noaram. Yu, welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you with us. So just give us the latest on this election in Thailand.
Well, Mark, the announcement of the provisional results was originally expected late Sunday, but it was unexpectedly delayed to Monday. According to Thailand's Election Commission, the results will come out at 2 p.m. local time. More than 90% of the votes counted show a surprising lead of the pro-military party Palang Prachara with more than 7 million votes. Thai, the head of the party of the former prime minister, had 6.6 million. The newly formed Future Forward Party, supported mostly by the younger generation with its progressive policies and social media campaigns, was third with nearly 4.8 million votes. Prayut Chan-o-cha, the retired army general who led the coup against the country's last elected government 5 years ago, hopes the election will return him to power as a civilian prime minister. The prime minister will be the person who secures a majority across both houses, and the 250-seat Senate is seen as giving Prayut an advantage. About 52 million voters were registered to vote. The turnout was just under 66%, much lower than the 87% expected in early voting last week. U.S. Attorney General William Barr has handed his 4-page summary of the Mueller report to Congress. The summary says there was no coordination between President Trump or anyone on his team with Russia, no conspiracy and no collusion during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Therefore, Barr decided that the evidence was not sufficient to support a prosecution of the president for obstruction of justice. Let's take a listen to what President Trump had to say about the report.
There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration. It's a shame that our country had to go through this. To be honest, it's a shame that your president has had to go through this before I even got elected. It began. And it began illegally. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to be looking at the other side. So it's complete exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. Thank you very much. Thank you.
In the UK, 2 ministers touted as a potential caretaker prime minister in reports of a brewing cabinet coup over a handling of Brexit say they fully backed Theresa May. Environment Secretary Michael Gove told reporters on Sunday it was not the time to change the captain of the ship. May's de facto deputy David Lidington also claimed he was 100% behind the prime minister. British newspapers reported over the weekend that a group was formed to force May out, aiming to replace her until a proper leadership contest is held later this year. Chinese President Xi Jinping paid a visit to Monaco on Sunday. He met with Prince Albert, and their bilateral talks mainly focused on economic and environmental issues. He's set to meet with French President Emmanuel Macron for a dinner outside a French resort town where they'll exchange opinions on global issues and their relationship. On Monday, the two leaders will move to Paris to sign energy and other contracts. The trip comes after President Xi visited Italy, where he was able to make progress on Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative as Italy decided to join the project. The cruise ship Viking Sky, carrying almost 1,400 people, docked safely in Molde Harbor, Western Norway on Sunday after a harrowing day stranded at sea. The vessel heading from Bergen, Norway to London experienced the loss of engine power off the coast of Norway near Molde on Saturday. 17 people suffered injuries, with 2 in critical condition. After the vessel sent a distress signal, Norwegian authorities sent 5 helicopters and 2 rescue ships to aid the Viking Sky. Around 470 people were rescued via helicopters. The rest were evacuated via rescue ships.
Now, we are beginning a new segment today. It's called Life and Info. As the name suggests, we'll be focusing on information useful for everyday life, both inside and outside of Korea. And over the course of the week and going forward, we'll have our Arirang News reporters joining us in the studio as well. So let's kick off this debut Life and Info with delivery services here in South Korea, which are said to be some of the best in the entire world. But the industry continues to evolve, and the market for dawn and same-day delivery has really shown explosive growth, which means customers can now expect the things they ordered arriving at their door, sometimes within a matter of hours. Our Park Se-young has more.
From organic fruits and vegetables to ready-to-eat food, an order placed before 11 p.m. guarantees groceries will be with you by 7 a.m. the next day.
It's difficult to go grocery shopping with my baby, so being able to buy high-quality goods easily using an app is very convenient.
No longer just limited to milk and newspapers, Korea's dawn delivery service is especially popular among dual-income and single-person households. With major companies and startups joining the dawn delivery race, the market value grew from $9 million in 2015 to over $350 million in 2018, despite being limited to services in Seoul and some other areas surrounding the capital. Companies like Shinsegae, Lotte, and Coupang have been focusing on upgrading their logistics centers, with Coupang planning to expand its dawn delivery service nationwide within this year. For those who still prefer to see and feel fresh produce at the grocery store, simply scanning a QR code on the product pays for the item and schedules its delivery. There's no need to line up at the cashier or carry the item home.
Customers are able to see the actual product and read reviews from other customers without having to carry home heavy items like bottled water and rice.
Scanned items are delivered within 3 hours from nearby branches. Because online shopping accounts for about 40% of total consumer spending in Korea, the service was introduced to attract offline customers.
More one-person households are preferring to stay home. Companies are making buying stuff from home easier and putting an emphasis on fast service.
Bullet speed delivery services do come with some downsides, like excessive packaging, expensive delivery fees, hours and conditions of delivery work, and costly prerequisites for retailers. However, companies are only expected to take their service to another level in the fierce race for ever faster service. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, looking to further reduce the use of plastic bags, South Korea's capital Seoul will ban the use of such bags at big supermarkets and shops from April next month. For more on what the plastic bag ban may mean for stores and those of us here in Seoul that go to those supermarkets, our Gaeseong reports.
Seoul will ban the use of disposable plastic bags at big supermarkets and shops starting next month. Under the revised law on the use of recyclable waste, supermarkets that are 165 square meters or bigger will be penalized if caught handing out single-use plastic bags. Many single-use plastic bags are used in the fruit and vegetable aisles of supermarkets. Customers that opt to use the bags will need to pay for them. The city says if supermarkets or stores are caught giving away single-use plastic bags, they will be fined over $2,600.
Depending on the type or number of violations, the penalty amount will vary. We have done enough to craft the policy, so now we need to enforce the measures.
Supermarkets and stores will still be allowed to offer thin film plastic bags if they are used to contain so-called wet items such as fish, meat, and other related goods. Products that were once not listed but have been recently added to the list of goods that cannot be bagged include baked goods. The Seoul city government has been encouraging stores to adhere to the ban, which took effect in January, but will now impose fines without warnings when the 3-month grace period ends in April. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Stateless people who are legally staying in South Korea are expected to be able to obtain a round-trip travel certification from the government. According to the National Human Rights Commission of Korea, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has adopted a new travel policy as it thinks the previous policy violates the human rights of stateless persons staying in South Korea. While the ministry had originally limited the travel certification to one-way trips, it has decided to change its position to guarantee their freedom to come back. The issue surfaced 2 years ago when an Uzbek professor who had lived in Korea for 11 years became a stateless person and raised a petition over the issue. Now, sales of air purifying plants are on the rise here in South Korea, with the increasingly frequent high levels of fine dust. The Ministry of Agriculture and the Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation say sales of 6 plant species jumped 23% this year up until March 16th. Common ivy and parlor palm are able to absorb pollutants into their leaves, taking them out of the air. Bengal figs clear the air of airborne allergens, and golden pothos is excellent at reducing carbon monoxide levels. Officials also say they highly recommend having plants at home because they relax the mind and body while serving as natural air purifiers. In early 2016, we saw human intelligence lose to a self-learning algorithm in a historic game of Go between Korea's Lee Sedol and Google's AlphaGo. 3 years on, our Gaeseong shows us how far AI has advanced here in South Korea.
This smart mirror doesn't just show your reflection. Picking up your voice and gestures, it displays your favourite media contents, daily schedule, and even makeup tutorials as you get ready in the morning. Skelter Labs is one of South Korea's budding startups in artificial intelligence, aiming to change everyday life with revolutionary technology.
Conversational AI technology has been around for 2 years or 3 years, right? But the experience hasn't been that great, because nobody had the technology mature enough to provide good user experience. So instead of going after that market, we keep working on improving our technology so that it could be actually very useful for certain workflows.
Following the historic board game between Korean player Lee Sedol and Google's AlphaGo 3 years ago, the world's AI market is expected to have more than tripled this year and grow to almost $90 billion by 2025.
AlphaGo was one of the first cases where people directly experienced the power of AI through a game. Commercial areas have now branched out to voice assistance, health, and content personalization. AI is also being adopted in new domains like manufacturing, driverless cars, and IoT. This is just the start.
A growing number of Korean scientists like Chang are rising to the challenge, developing deep learning, the so-called brain of artificial intelligence, as well as speech and image recognition for diverse areas of application. This isn't just your average AI speaker, it's also a state-of-the-art health device which records your sleep patterns and diagnoses possible disorders. But are these efforts enough? Only 1,500 papers on AI were published in South Korea in 2017, compared to thousands in Europe and the US. The number of AI startups, while growing, stands at 154, just 1% of the country's ventures. China has over 4,000 AI firms. A science ministry body said this month that South Korea's AI technology lags almost 2 years behind America's.
We need to invest more in core technologies and harness quality data to improve machine learning. We need 10 times more startups to spark creative destruction. Also, Korea leads the world in semiconductors, shipbuilding, and consumer electronics. Optimizing AI in those fields could strongly boost our competence.
To nurture an ecosystem of innovation, the government plans to spend $1.9 billion until 2022 to bolster AI technology and produce 5,000 professionals in the field. Seoul, Arirang News.
Now, in some sports news, South Korea's little team Kim pulled off a dramatic final end comeback on Sunday to secure their and the country's first ever podium finish at the 2019 World Curling Championship in Denmark. Led by their skip, Kim Min-ji, South Korea were losing 5-4 against Japan in the third-place playoff match before scoring 3 points in the final end to win 7-5 and take the bronze. The little team Kim beat the original team Kim in August to secure their spot at the Worlds. Team Kim, as you might remember, shocked the curling world at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, where they won the silver medal. Now, let's say with some success by South Korean sports people, and Yang Hak-son returned home on Sunday after he won his second straight World Cup gold. Yang's latest medal came during the Doha World Cup, where he outscored 7 other gymnasts for his second straight top podium finish. His victory comes as he has unfortunately been blighted by injuries over the past few years of his career, which is a shame because he's an extremely talented young man. Yang won Korea's first ever gymnastics gold during the 2012 Summer Games in London, but pulled out of the 2016 Olympics due to an injury.
Good morning. It's another day with big temperature differences, as the gap could be wider than 10 degrees for most areas, including here in the capital. Gyeongju and Ponghwa in Gangwon-do province, however, could have a temperature gap of 16 degrees Celsius, so be sure to dress accordingly. So that means the brief cold snap that started last Friday will ease from this afternoon. And we should have much more bearable temperatures on Tuesday that are a lot higher than the seasonal average. But unwelcome news though, those of us in the northern parts of the country will have to deal with toxic smog again. But the further south you are, the better air quality you will enjoy. Meanwhile, dry weather advisories in place for eastern parts of the country, including Ulsan, Busan, and Daegu. And there's mostly sunny skies in store for the final week of March. And daily highs will be 3 to 4 degrees higher than yesterday, Seoul getting up to 14 degrees Celsius. Daegu and Gyeongju will get up to 17 degrees this afternoon. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now. Do stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV. And a reminder that our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
한량무는 남자의 대표적인 춤이면서 모든 도덕